guys, it's Kaylie, and this is gonna be a little bit of an unusual video for me. As you can see, I am in my makeupless, potato-faced glory. My hair's a mess, and I kind of don't care right now, and someone is standing like right outside my window, like very angrily yelling at someone on their phone. So I apologize if you hear any random like yelling or talking. I've been waiting to make this video for a while because earlier the landscaping people were here and they were mowing the lawn and running leaf blowers and stuff, and it was like really super loud. And I was waiting and waiting, and then finally they got done and they left, but then this random person decided to come out and start yelling at someone on their cell phone. So, you know, the joys of apartment living. But anyway, like I said, this is going to be kind of a different video, back to a more vloggy format. For the longest time, I kind of avoided doing vloggy stuff because it doesn't perform well on my channel. Like, for a while I was trying to only focus on things that perform well on my channel, which is basically me talking about topical things and like really, I don't know, like curated, like kind of scripted stuff, or like my fashion videos. Those are honestly like the most popular things. But I've been doing a lot of thinking about my channel and thinking about quitting YouTube and not quitting YouTube and all kinds of stuff, and I decided ultimately I don't care. For a while I was really gung-ho and like earnest about trying to grow my channel and trying to like succeed at YouTube or whatever that may mean, and unsurprisingly it kind of started becoming unfun for me because it became more of a job instead of just something I enjoy doing as a hobby, which is why I started it. So I think from now on I'm gonna kind of try to go back to how I approached it before, which is this is just something I do for fun. And I might vlog a lot. I might do more talky videos kind of like this and just do whatever I feel like doing and uploading. And if people like it, great. And if they don't like it, you know, that's also okay. Like, I don't need to be, you know, a successful YouTuber or internet famous or anything like that. I don't think I would even like that. But so yeah, that's a little bit of an update on like my channel. I feel like I've made so many videos about what I want to do with my channel and blah blah blah, and I guess I've, you know, changed my mind again about that. But so anyway, this video is more about mental health stuff. So if you find that triggering or upsetting or whatever, you know, just be warned about that. It's not going to be anything too big or serious, but I just kind of wanted to talk about my experience dealing with my mental health stuff recently and going to see a therapist for the first time in many years, and just some kind of important revelations that I've had recently through therapy, and how that's affected my life and how that's changing things. So first of all, at the beginning of this year, one of my big resolutions, if you want to call it that, was that I decided that I wanted to focus on taking better care of myself, both like in all aspects, like physically, emotionally, and especially mentally, because I feel like I've been kind of neglecting that part of myself and my self-care more than any other. And I felt like I had a lot of underlying issues I needed to take care of, like some residual trauma from my childhood and my family and stuff. So I resolved to go to therapy. It took me a long time to actually go to therapy because if anyone out there has mental health issues, you understand that it's incredibly hard to reach out for help. It's incredibly hard to get motivated. You have to do a lot of research. You have to, a lot of the times, like, it sounds crazy because ultimately these places are a business and they should want your business and want your money. But oftentimes you find that places are kind of hard to get a hold of, or it's hard to get someone to call you back, or if you're like me and you have really bad anxiety, and I have like really terrible anxiety about talking to people I don't know on the phone, or even people I do know sometimes, but especially having to cold call strangers or have to wait on a cold or a call from them, it's like very, very anxiety inducing. So I prefer to deal with people over text messages and email, and yeah, and that is even like, that makes the process all the harder. But anyway, I managed to get into therapy. I liked my therapist. I got a good vibe off of her from the beginning. She seemed like she was sort of like a little bit of an edgy alternative person also, which I liked. And she was very upfront and blunt with me. She was like, I'm not a super emotional therapist. Like, I don't talk about feelings and how things make you feel all that much. She's like, I'm all about like evidence and fact-based stuff and science, and that all sounded good to me. So her initial recommendation was that I come every single week to see her to kind of build up a rapport, which makes sense and I understood, but it was very financially hard for me because even though I currently have, it's not the best insurance, it's okay. It's not as good as the insurance we used to have like a year or so ago. But because things changed or whatever, the bracket that we were in, the expense of it was going to go up way, way more than we could afford. So we had to go to the next tier, which obviously isn't as good. It doesn't cover as much. So it's okay. It's better than having nothing for sure. But it still requires us to pay quite a bit out of pocket for things like prescriptions or therapy. So it's almost prohibitive. So I was getting a lot of anxiety about that, about how even though I was going to therapy and I felt like I was enjoying it and I was getting a lot out of it, I wasn't sure I would be able to continue to go. And I talked to my therapist about this, and she was willing to see me like every other week as opposed to every single week, which helped. But ultimately, I ended up having to cancel all my upcoming appointments, and I'm still keeping therapy open as an option, but it's not something I can see myself affording weekly, bi-weekly, even monthly. It's just too expensive. And especially recently at my job, my hours have been cut. It's like I'm barely employed. It's like I only work 1 or 2 days a week. So yeah, I can barely afford to cover my necessary bills or buy groceries or stuff that I need to survive, much less go to therapy. So that's very disappointing. I'm keeping therapy open as an option in the future, so in case things get really bad or something, I'm open to going back to therapy and just going to sessions when I feel I need them. But at this point, it's like it's not something I can fit into my life or afford, unfortunately, which I know is the case for a lot of people. And so often, as the case is with therapy, I feel like it's mostly helpful to me in that it's always helpful to have a fresh perspective, someone who isn't as emotionally invested in me or my situation, to kind of, maybe give me a new perspective on something. One of the big things that I kind of wanted to resolve this year and get help resolving was my relationship with my family, in particular my parents. Because as many of you know, if you don't know, I have a very toxic family, and I was raised in a very toxic conservative environment. And obviously I don't want to diagnose my parents. I'm not qualified to diagnose them. But from a lot of stuff that I've read, they have a lot of traits in common with narcissistic parents. So I was brought up in that environment, and kind of talking with a therapist, I realized how much like emotions were suppressed in my household. We weren't allowed to talk about them or acknowledge them or anything. And so obviously that kind of causes problems for me in adulthood, because I have a really hard time expressing myself clearly. I have a really hard time just being an emotional creature like a human should be. I tend to think most emotions are bad and I shouldn't have them, and I feel guilty for having them, and I suppress them a lot, which, you know, it's very unhealthy. So I'm working on that. And I also learned, my therapist helped me realize that I don't have to be around my family if I don't want to. Because for the longest time, I felt guilty that I didn't want to be around my family or talk to them all the time or whatever. And my parents would kind of guilt me about that, about like, oh, you don't call us enough, you don't come visit enough, blah, blah, blah. And so naturally I would feel guilty. I would feel guilty that I was being a bad daughter, but like being around them made me feel like shit. So it was like this huge dilemma. It was like, do I want to feel like shit, or do I want to, you know, feel guilty for not contacting my family enough? And I made a whole video, I'll link it down below, about me talking about my experience the Christmas before last, where I went to visit my family alone for Christmas, and how horrible of an experience that was, because it reminded me of how trapped and isolated and smothered I felt growing up by my family dynamic. And I had kind of forgotten that after being away from them for so long. But that trip reminded me. And after I got back from that trip, I was just in this like depressed funk for a while. Like my partner says that I needed like a week to recover after visiting my family, which was kind of true. I did. I felt completely just like burned out, emotionally used up from, you know, being around them, being in this toxic environment for, you know, only 3 or 4 days or however long it was. It made me really think, like, you know, how important is this to me? Is it necessary? Why do I need to force myself to be around people that I literally need a week of recovery time, you know, after I see them? And my therapist helped me realize, she was like, you know, you don't have to if you don't want to. That's the beauty of being an adult, the beauty of, you know, living several hundred miles away from them. You don't have to worry about them showing up on your doorstep uninvited or whatever. It's easier to set your boundaries. You know, it's okay to send them a card every now and then. It's okay to like call them every now and then, just do as much as you want to, and don't feel obligated to do more than that. And it was really refreshing and eye-opening to me to have someone else, a professional, like tell me it was okay to do that. Because for so much of my life, anyone who's known about my situation and my relationship with my parents, they kind of either never said anything about it, which I understand because it's like you feel like it's not your place to advise someone about that, or they would tell me that like, oh, you know, but what can you do? It's your family, like that kind of thing. Like, we're all obligated to our families, no matter how horrible the situation is. Like the idea that we have this blood tie to someone overcomes all else. And I hate that. It is such bullshit. It's like, you don't have to put up with someone's toxic bullshit, someone who constantly hurts you, just because you are related to them. I want everyone out there to know that. Like, if you're watching this and you're going through something similar, if someone hurts you, if someone makes you miserable all the time, and the times that are good, it's just weird manipulation of you and your emotions so that you don't stray too far. And, you know, after every interaction with them, you feel tired, you feel less than, you feel sad. That's not okay. It's not excusable just because you are related to them. You don't owe anyone anything just because they're related to you. You just don't. And I know that's kind of like a controversial stance to have in our culture, in our society, but it's true. It's like, if someone wants to be in your life, if they want your love and they want to be part of your life, they have to earn that by treating you well, and at least attempting to. And through therapy, I kind of learned that my family isn't ever going to change. And even if they do change, me coming in and kind of acquiescing to their will, their whims, it's not going to help them change. If anything, it's going to help them stick to their ways. So maybe by removing myself and standing up to them, letting them know my truth, no matter how much it hurts them and upsets them and makes them mad at me, it may not change them, but maybe it will. Like, doing the same thing my whole life this far obviously isn't changing anything. And honestly, I don't really give a shit if they change or not anymore. Like, maybe when I was younger, I held out hope of that. I really wanted them to change. I really wanted them to become the loving, nurturing family I always wanted, but never had. But a long time ago, I didn't even go therapy to work this out. I kind of worked this out on my own and reading self-help books and stuff. But I came to realize that after leaving my family in my early 20s and moving across the country to be with my partner and living my own life and seeing how they reacted to that, I kind of realized that the sadness I felt about my family was really me. It really wasn't about being away from them and the people they were and the life I had, because I was fucking miserable with them. But it was about me mourning the family and the childhood and the upbringing and the familial love I wish I had had, that I didn't get from them. And through like a lot of self-actualization and stuff, I began to realize that the way they were, the way they are, the way they continue to be, to continue to live in these toxic patterns that, for all I know, are you know, hundreds of years old. This is like some ancestral shit. They're completely incapable of giving me what I want and I need. And that sucks. And I wish it wasn't that way for me or for anyone else. But I had to realize they're completely incapable of giving me a loving, stable, nurturing, you know, family and care and love in that way. And it was really, really hard to acknowledge that and to accept it and to realize that that's the truth, that was my truth. But then it also gave me hope, because then I realized I can give myself those things. I can give myself those things with my loving partner and their family. And through knowing my partner and their family, who, like, their family is amazing. They have like a relatively, you know, healthy, well-adjusted, loving family. And It's been amazing to kind of see what it's like to have a family like that through them, and make me realize just how toxic my family and my upbringing was. And so I could kind of begin to heal myself in that way and give myself the things that I wish my parents could have given me. But, and I also had a lot of residual anger at my parents for, not being able to give me those things. But in time, I've kind of learned to give them some sympathy, some empathy, in that, they're a product of this ancestral toxicity as much as I am. And it's been very hard for me to overcome it and kind of step outside of it and want to get to be beyond it. And I'm not saying this to put anyone down or make fun of them or anything, but it's like my parents are very simple people. They're very uneducated people. They grew up in a generation where, education wasn't that important. They were in the Deep South, where everything was very rural, and, religion was way more important than anything else, and religion and family. And, it's a good thing to beat your children. It's a good thing to beat up people who don't fit in. It's, if you're a square peg, you're going to get nailed down. And I was a square peg born into that family of round pegs who tried so desperately to fit in and not be the subject of gossip and, all the toxic shit going on everywhere all the time. I refuse to acquiesce to their will, and I refuse to fit in and be just like everybody else and not question things. And I'm sure that was upsetting for them, and it was very hard for them to have a child like me. And they didn't know how to deal with it. How could they? And they're very simple people who still believe that, the Bible is more of a literal guidebook than, actual science and stuff. So I can't really blame my parents. I'm disappointed, but I can't really blame them for being the way they are, and for not being able to give me what I needed and what I wanted. And I wish they could be more self-reflective and work on themselves, but that's a lot to ask of anyone, much less these uneducated rural people from nowhere, Alabama, who got married when they were fresh out of high school and started having kids without knowing what the fuck they were doing. So I try to keep it in perspective like that. It still hurts to know, I don't know. That's something I struggle with a lot. It hurts to know I'm part of this legacy. Lately I'm dealing with a lot of self-doubt and I don't know, hate, I guess, almost, because I don't know if a lot of people can relate to this, but it's I have a lot of self-doubt and self-consciousness about being from the Deep South, from being from a community that's very small and rural and ultra conservative religious. I feel like that's some kind of bad reflection on me, but at the same time I feel kind of proud of myself for not being like everyone else and for getting out and for questioning things. But there's always a tiny twinge of shame when I'm in a group of people and people ask me where I'm from, and I have to say, tiny podunk town, Alabama. And sometimes I lie and I say that, I was right outside Birmingham, the big city in Alabama. And I have a lot of shame around not being highly educated, of just being like a high school graduate and nothing else. No college credit at all to my name. And that's something a couple of different therapists have told me, is that I sound like I was a gifted child. And in one way that kind of makes me happy, because who doesn't like to hear that they're gifted? Who doesn't like to hear that they're special in some small way? But in another way it makes me incredibly, incredibly sad. Because I wonder what I could have been. If that makes sense. I wonder what I could have been, or what I could have accomplished if I had gone to good schools, if I had gone to the right places, if I had parents that understood and loved and nurtured me, that understood that I wasn't weird or that I wasn't slow, but just that I was gifted in some way and maybe needed special classes or special attention. Like, how different could my life have been? Oh, I didn't expect to get this emotional talking about this. I wasn't expecting this at all. But yeah, I guess obviously, obviously I've worked on and I've gotten over a lot of my issues with my parenting and my upbringing, but that's something I still struggle with a lot, is the feeling of especially as I'm getting older, feeling like the best of my life is behind me and I never really accomplished or did anything. And the what ifs of, like, what could I have been? What could I have accomplished if this, and this about my life had been different? If my parents had, you know, helped me and encouraged me to go to college like they did my brother, instead of telling me that I didn't need to go to college because I was a girl and I didn't do well enough in school to deserve to go to college. But the reason I didn't do well in school was because I was being bullied constantly. But anyway, so yeah, that's definitely something I struggle with and I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate, is just the constant what ifs and feeling like I missed out in life, and it makes me very sad. And especially when I see other people or talk to other people, like, we kind of all know about the social media phenomenon of, you know, you see like the highlight reel of the best parts of everyone else's life and it makes you feel like shit. And it's like, to a certain degree I kind of feel that, but with life in general, like I talk to other people and, you know, they grew up in like nice middle class homes with loving parents, and their parents helped them go to school and all these things, and they went to a prestigious college and they got all these accolades, and so they easily got a nice prestigious job somewhere, and to me it just seems like a fairy tale, like something very distant and unattainable to me, and it's like I want that, but at the same time it just seems so scary and unattainable. I don't know. And it just, like, I just get into existential despair so much, wondering, like, what if the best is behind me? What if, you know, like, I never make anything of my life? What if I never find my true calling? What if? So I guess that's what I'm working on right now. I'm sorry I started crying and this got like super emotional and stuff. I really didn't mean for it to be. I just wanted to have like a nice calm, casual chat about like my experiences in therapy and like some stuff I've been working through, but I guess it turned into this, and this video is getting way too long and I don't want it to go on any longer, so I'm just gonna end it here. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have dealt with any of these issues and what you think and what has worked for you and what has helped you. I really appreciate your feedback and for you watching, especially something as weird as this. And let me know if you would like to see more videos like this. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And always remember and never forget that you are beautiful no matter what, and to always be yourself. And I will see you in my next video. Bye guys. Thanks.